So, we're going to talk about God's plans being good. I know that life can feel like a maze sometimes. You get in there, you're doing your best, you think you're doing your best, and all of a sudden it takes turns you didn't expect, or you end up at a place that turns out to be a dead end. It can really be frustrating sometimes trying to figure out what's unfolding and when it's unfolding. And even though this is a little cliche, bear with me, it's like the old country song used to say, life is a dance, you learn as you go. And somewhere along the way, we finally figure that out. That is not to say that you should not have your plans. That is to say that you should just simply understand that life is sometimes going to adjust your plans. And I do like the little motivational idea that says when you bump into a dead end or things don't go your way, that's just God trying to say, no, I got a better plan for you. Now, whether that's theologically sound or not, we'll discuss that later, but it helps get you through the rough times, always understanding that God's got something in store for us that's better than anything you and I could plan. We'll start with Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not lean on your own understanding. Now, let's pause there. You can have your plans. You can have your agenda. You can have your 5-year plan, your 10-year plan, your 20-year plan, and all of the people who claim to know stuff say that's a good thing to do, so I'm not going to argue with it. But don't lean on it. Don't trust in it with all intensity when life says, I know you had your 10-year plan, but I have a different plan for you. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Don't lean on your own understanding. And if you will do that, in all your ways acknowledge Him, He will make your paths straight. He'll get you to where He wants you to go and where you want to be eternally. So I know all of this is way easier said than done, but this is what we as Christians learn to do in our training. So Jeremiah 29:11, talking to the people in captivity, he says, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord's plans for welfare and not for calamity, to give you a future and a hope. Now, God's the one that put them in captivity. He's going to hold them there quite some time longer. And yet, in all of this process, it is a plan for good. So all they have to do is learn how to let go of their own agenda, their own want to, their own calendar, and turn it over to God and cooperate with God in His time. In fact, we sing that song. It's in our songbook. I want to say it's 361. We sing, in His time. He makes all things beautiful in His time. And it's a wonderful song to sing. It's only 2 verses long, and it's one you can sing as you're going down the road, driving your car, and really ingraining it in your mind and your thought. But it's one thing to sing it. It's another thing to really, really totally trusting God with all your heart, that I don't understand what you're doing. I don't understand your timetable. I don't understand why I'm having to go through this or that right now. But I do believe with all my heart that in your time, you'll make all things beautiful, just like we sing in the song. And so we let go and we let God. So why can you trust God? Psalms 139, verse 1 through 4 would tell us, "O Lord, you have searched me, you know me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You understand my thoughts from afar. You scrutinize my path and my lying down, and are intimately acquainted with all my ways." Now, either that's a little unnerving to you, it makes you feel uncomfortable, or if you're diligently, sincerely seeking God, then it makes you feel really good because He's the one that looks at your heart. And I think that's kind of neat because He says He understands our thought from afar. And God knows exactly what He's doing. He's got it all figured out. We're the toddlers. I realize that a lot of us in this auditorium are 50, 60, 70 plus years old, but we're still the toddlers compared to God. And so He, like that perfect, healthy parent, knows exactly what He's doing, even though we can't see any further than a kindergartner can see. So we're going to plan our ways much like a kindergartner. Proverbs 16:9. But the Lord's going to direct our steps. And our job, as we just said, is to let go and let God. Our job is to put our trust in Him and His plans. We say it so simply and so smoothly. If God said it, that settled it. That is correct. If you thought that, you're 100% right. However, it's one thing to say it. It's another thing to turn your heart over to it and to really just melt into it and feel the love of God when it doesn't feel like the way we define love. So He's got plans. They're very intentional, and His aim is our good. Now let me do a little short aside. When I say God has plans for you, I'm not saying that He's got plans and you're going to be the next president of the United States, or you're going to be the next multi-millionaire, billionaire, you're going to be the most popular, whatever. When I say He has plans for you and His plans are intentional, I really mean it pretty simple. Ecclesiastes 12:13, the whole duty of man is to fear God and keep His commandments. His plans are for us to line up. Amos 3:3, can two walk together unless they're agreed? His plans are for us to walk in agreement with Him. And His plans are not so shallow that they're earthly oriented, other than our learning to surrender and complete trust to Him. His plans are eternal. And the blessings He had for us are not those that we're going to end at the tombstone and, we leave everything behind as we move on. So definitely He has plans for us. I just think a lot of people in the world nowadays have really twisted that around. And when they think, oh, God's got a plan for me, I'm gonna be the best NBA player ever. No, I really don't think that's God's plan for you. That's pretty short and that's pretty shallow. God's plan is on the other side. That's where we lay up treasures. That's where the eternal life is. That's where the greatest riches are. Of course, it's not easy, and no one should be surprised at this. We have verses like Matthew 16:24. How many times have you dealt with a verse like this? Jesus told the disciples, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. And though this is really simple, this is straight and narrow way stuff. It is so obvious, and yet I think at the emotional level, it's easy to miss it. He said, I want you to deny yourself. That's again, don't lean on your own understanding. That's where we started out in Proverbs 3. Don't lean on your own understanding. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. If He wants you to deny yourself and go this narrow way, then that's what we do. We take up our cross, which necessarily means some pain and some difficulty. However, the flesh keeps trying to squeeze in there because the flesh lusts against the soul, as Galatians 5:17 says. And the flesh wants to say, yeah, but I'm going to be the exception. I'm going to be the one that gets to heaven without having to deny myself, deny my agenda, deny my flesh, crucify my flesh. That would be Galatians 5:24. I'm going to be the one that gets to heaven without having to take up my cross. I'm going to be the one that somehow finds this broad, comfortable, pretty easy road to heaven. Sure, there'll be a few bumps, but it's really not going to be that tough. No, you're not. None of us are going to do that. If we get to heaven, we follow the footsteps of Jesus, and the footsteps of Jesus lead to Calvary. And Paul would teach us to crucify the flesh, and that's what we do if we end up with that one great victory. But that's not going to be easy, because the flesh is going to scream and yell and holler all the way through it. The flesh is not going to go, oh yeah, sacrifice me, give me up, go ahead and crucify me, I'm tired of living anyway. The flesh doesn't do that. The flesh hangs on and keeps scrapping for just one more day and one more day. And they say that many of the world's wealthiest people are laying in their deathbed with more money than they could ever spend. And while they're in their last few days, they're still trying to figure out how to make some more money. Isn't that kind of odd? But it's commonly true. So we're going to have to deny ourselves. We have to take up our cross. I mean, we're going to suffer some. We're going to give up some earthly things. And then there are going to be some seasons of waiting where it can really seem like a long time. And it may be a long time. Remember Abraham? He got the promise, you're going to have a son. You remember how old he was when the son came along? 100 years old. Impossible, right? No, not impossible, but it happened. God made Moses the deliverer of Israel. How old was Moses when God recruited him to actually do it? 80 years old. Think about that one. So those are some long waiting seasons. But Moses had some, I'm going to call it maturing or marinating he needed to do in that season of his waiting. Then some seasons of waiting are a little bit shorter. How long was Joseph in prison after Potiphar's wife did her little lie thing? And he got out and went to be second under Pharaoh? 3 years. Okay, you go, oh yeah, 3 years, that's nothing. Oh, come on. 3 years is forever, right? If it's your 3 years. Now, when we look at it abstractly as somebody else's 3 years, we go, oh no, 3 years, I can do that. Can you really? How long does it take to get a 4-year college degree? Somebody say 4 years. Somebody said 5 years. That'll work too. Okay, so it's real easy on the calendar, right? How many kids give up before they ever get their degree? Because they just burn out and it just gets too long in the process. Well, I thought 4 or 5 years was nothing. Well, it's a whole lot when it's your 4 or 5 years. That's something you don't want to lose sight of. So you have seasons of waiting. Then you have seasons of uncertainty and doubt. So let's go back to Joseph for a moment. Joseph had had some dreams that really suggested he had some great stuff coming, but he didn't know exactly what all of that meant. And then his brothers sell him off into slavery, and things are going like, this isn't what I dreamed. And then Potiphar's wife does her nasty little thing, and he ends up in prison. That's certainly not what he dreamed. He's at the bottom of the barrel just about. And yet, in that time of doubt, Joseph stayed faithful. Joseph hung in there. And he didn't know how long he was going to have to hang in there. He didn't know when things were going to change. He just had that faith. And in that faith, one day, God decided in God's time, it was time to open the door, and Joseph went someplace quite phenomenal. So you're going to go through your seasons of uncertainty and doubt, and you're just not going to know. What does the future hold? Let me ask you this. Do you know what the future holds anyway? The thing that makes the difference here is when I look down the corridor of time, let's just say the next 2 weeks as we look through the holiday season, and we have our schedules kind of planned out, and we kind of know where we're eating this meal and that meal, and we're getting together with the family, and what days the kids are going to be out of school. But we've looked down a couple of weeks, and we go, okay, I'm pretty comfortable that that's what's going to happen. There's a positiveness there looking down that path. It's when you have to look down the path and there's not positiveness. It's when the doctor comes and says, there was something on your test that didn't look right. And we really want to do a second test to go a little deeper. Now what do you know? Either path, you didn't know. You had no clue what was coming tomorrow. It was just that as you look down one path, you were comfortable with what you thought was coming, and you look down the other path and you're not comfortable with what you think's coming, but you don't know either one of them. They're both seasons of uncertainty and doubt. It's just our attitude toward how it's going to unfold. And so you have those, and then you do have just some straight up discomfort. And those can be quite long lasting, depending on what kind of discomfort we're going through. Many of us have known people who have struggled with cancer, and they struggled tough 3, 4, 5, 6 years. And then we had their funeral. That was a long season of discomfort. And if you put yourself in their shoes, that was a really long season of discomfort. It's kind of like, to use the bull riding analogy, when you're sitting in the stands and the guy's just got to sit on the bull for 8 seconds. Come on, what's 8 seconds? That's nothing. Yeah, you get on the bull. Ain't happening. I'm not getting on a mechanical bull, let alone a real one. So the question becomes, as we're trying to really tune into God's plan, is will we trust Him? Will we trust Him with all our heart, with all our soul, with all our mind? Will we really, really give ourselves over to Him and say, so life has taken some turns. I had no expectation were coming. I have no idea, but I know you can make something good come out of it if I'll keep my focus on heaven. That's tough. Don't kid yourself. And if you're struggling with it, Just look yourself in the mirror and go, hey, I'm human. I don't get it any more than Abraham got it. And you do remember Abraham messed it up, remember? He and Sarah decided they need to bring Hagar into the equation, and they tried to take a hold of it with their own wisdom. Didn't work too well, did it? So he loves us. He loves us more than we can imagine. We're not a cold, faceless number to God. I think one of the things that challenges us is how many people do you think you could name, and as you name them, you can see their face and you can really remember some kind of interaction you had with them? Maybe 100. If we really sat for a while and had our paper out, maybe 150, 200. And somewhere beyond that, it becomes too much for our little mind. And God's got 8 billion of us on the planet right now. I cannot for the life of me conceive how he could know the number of hairs on every person's head, 8 billion people, not even counting the people in the past. But he does. He loves us that much. And the only way I know to even begin to illustrate it is you mothers more than the fathers, but all of us had it when that baby was born. Of course, back in my day, you usually didn't know whether you're getting a boy or a girl. And you got that message after the baby was delivered. And they wrapped the baby up. And it's just a feeling you can't imagine. And I know with moms, it's even more so. It's just overwhelming love. That's the love God had for you and I when he created us in our mother's womb. He loves us. We're not just some number. We're us. And he knows us inside out. He sees our struggles. He sees our flaws. He sees all of our weaknesses. He knows where he can look at us and go, you're doing pretty good over here. And over here you could use a little work. He knows the whole thing. I think it would really be awesome if we could get an annual report from God, like an annual business evaluation or something where your boss calls you into the office and gives you X number of good points and X number of points you need to work on. That would be wonderful to have that because he knows it inside out. And even though he knows our flaws and our weaknesses and all our dirtiest, darkest little secrets, he demonstrated his own love toward us in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. He didn't wait for us to become phenomenal, clean, heavenly focused. We were flat dead in our sin. And he loved us so much that he sent Christ to die for us. So he knows your deepest, darkest, dirtiest secret. Now, I want to pause there just a moment. And I'm not asking you to tell anybody, but I'm asking you to think of what's that one thing you hold inside your heart that you think, oh man, if they knew that about my past, they would never let me in this church building again. If they knew that about me, they would never have coffee with me again. They wouldn't want to be seen with me again if they knew, and you fill in your own blank. Have you got it? Guess what? God already knew it. God knows it. He knows every detail of it. And yet, guess what he did? He sent Christ to die for you. That's the kind of love we're talking about. That's why you can know God's plan is good. He still sent his son, even though he knew your dirtiest secret. And if you haven't committed your deepest, darkest, dirtiest secret yet, he knows it's coming. He knows exactly what it's going to be. And he still sent Jesus to die for your sins. I think that's wonderful if you can really believe it and connect with it. So also God is everywhere. So nothing's going to take God by surprise. The eyes of the Lord are in every place, watching the evil and the good. Proverbs 15:3. So nothing surprises God. Nothing catches him off guard. Now and then Sharon and I have to look at one another. Okay, we're going to change plans this week. We didn't see that coming. And things happen that way. Sometimes you have your plans and all of a sudden there's an emergency. And plans get rearranged. That doesn't happen to God. God doesn't get taken by surprise. Isn't that a wonderful leader to have? To have someone in your life who sees the big picture. And I don't mean just here to 80 or 90 years old or however long you get to live, but when I say big picture, I mean the eternal picture. He sees eternity, and he knows exactly his place, your place in eternity. So he said in Matthew 10:30, even the hairs of your head are numbered. We referred to that a little out of sequence, but nonetheless, you're not unseen. You're absolutely not forgotten. God knows all about you. He knows, oh, your potential too. I'm going to pause there before I get to It's All Training. I don't have much to say on It's All Training. One of the challenges we have, whether we're teaching students in whatever environment, or I'm teaching Bible students in whatever environment, or we're teaching kids who are trying to get into sports, and I know sports would be a little bit different. So many people don't believe in their potential. They just don't feel like they got it. And so because they're judging themselves by the super best highlight reels that somebody else put on Facebook, and they're using those to judge their common mundane life, they're like, I'll never match up. And you can't match up that way. But the potential in each of us is crazy awesome. Now, it may not be the direction you want to go. So if you're a short, heavy little fellow like me and you're thinking, I'm going to be a basketball player in the pros, I think somebody needs to sit down and have a talk with me. I really don't see that coming, you know. So you can get a little messed up sometimes. But the potential that we all have in various areas of life, find your passion and go for it. And then ultimately, it's all training. We'll come back to that one again, of course. So God has a plan for you. It is an eternal plan, and that's where you really need to focus. How often do we sing? This world is not my home. I'm just passing through. My treasures are laid up somewhere beyond the blue. Now, if that is true, if that resonates in the deepest place of your heart, man, we're on. We're in line with God. We're doing exactly what He wants us to do. Matthew 10:28, He says, don't fear those who can kill the body, but after that have no more they can do to you. So that's exactly where we want to be. The flesh is disposable. It is expendable. It is going to die. Only question is, when is it going to die? But we know we're all going to attend a funeral for somebody in this auditorium, or they're going to attend ours. I don't mean that to be morbid. That's just the reality of it. And furthermore, we don't know when that's going to happen. Now, we're hope that when we attend your funeral, you're 90 plus or 100 plus and had a good, healthy life. But God's plan wasn't about earthly accomplishments. God's plan was about the spiritual training as you traveled your pilgrimage. So we're sojourners. Now, I'm using the ESV there. Quick explanation. I'm changing over computers, and I don't have my NASB 1995 up on my new computer yet, so I had ESV available. I kind of prefer, I believe it's the New King James there, where he said, I urge you as pilgrims and exiles to abstain from the passions of the flesh which wage war against the soul. Or as Paul would say, present your body a living sacrifice. So part of our challenge is our limited vision, and that so much of what we do is between here and the tombstone. And it is a balance. I said earlier, it's not wrong to have your 5-year plan, your 10-year plan, your 20-year plan. That's not wrong. It's okay to be planning ahead, but that is just a drop in the bucket of our eternal existence. So our challenge is, go ahead and plan. Absolutely. But understand the insignificance of our earthly plans. It's the spiritual training that counts the most. The tombstone's definitely not the end. Now, once you start envisioning yourself as a spiritual being that's an endless being, it changes the picture. Sure, I'm going to lay this body down. Big deal. And as we get older, let me ask you, as we get older, it's not as discouraging, is it? I'll tell you, when I was young and could hop up and bounce around like Archer and the young people, you thought, oh yeah, I'm gonna live to be 140. You get up and you have to stand there a minute. Y'all know how you do this. You've been in your recliner too long. You stand up, you go, give me a minute. And you get your balance, you start loosening things up. Yeah, laying that body down in the grave's not as discouraging as when you were younger. So we get into God's way. We understand He's got a better plan. Isaiah 55, 8 and 9. My thoughts are not your thoughts. Okay, that's a good place to pause. I have thoughts. I have ideas. I have plans, just like I hope you do. But God's got some too. And His are better than mine. His ways are better than mine. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts. When we get to our pinnacle, and I'm talking about secular earthly, when we get to our pinnacle there, and we think we're going to impress God, yeah, we're cute. We're about as cute as a 3-year-old bringing a mud pie to mama. And it is cute. I don't want to take anything away from that. The children, when they play in the mud and do what they do, are just as cute as can be. There's no doubt about it, making their tinker toys or whatever they're doing. But what lasting value does it have? What God has in store for us goes beyond our tinker toys and our little things. So it was 361. I got my memory right in His time. We're not going to do the song, but anyway, wait for the Lord. Be strong and let your heart take courage. Wait for the Lord. Because God doesn't move on our timetable. This is tough. So I'm back to Jeremiah 29:10. This is where He had said to Israel in captivity, I know the plans I have for you, plans for good. And here He goes on to say, when 70 years are completed for Babylon, I will visit you and I will fulfill to you my promise. Now I want you to pause there. I highlighted the 70 years. There were people in captivity there that were your age, whatever you happen to be. 13, 17. Jackson, I don't know your age, I'd call it 12. All right. You know, or I won't call the folks on the older end. I'm 67. Let's use me. I'll be polite. How old am I going to be in 70 years? No, I'm not. That's right. I'm going to be 70 years. Wait a minute. God came to these people and said, in 70 years, this is when you're going to see my good plan. Okay, if I'm Reese's age, I'm like, this is totally cool. I'll be 73. I can still handle that. I'll get to enjoy it some. If I'm my age, I'm like, I'm just dusting. It's over. But God had a timetable. And His timetable wasn't my fleshly interest, and it wasn't my fleshly agenda. The timetable was His, and He had a good plan. And the people had to have total faith and trust in the Lord God with all their heart, that even though many of them would be dead by the time this plan came to fruition, their place was to have total faith and commitment to God's plan, even though they would not live to see it. His plans. They're not going to be rushed. They're not going to be delayed. But God's not going to waste the waiting. He had a purpose for that 70 years. And that's the way it works. I think He had a purpose for Moses 40 years being a shepherd. I think He had a purpose for Abraham's waiting until he was 100. I think He had a purpose for Joseph 3 years in prison and everything that went before that. It's not wasted if we learn to align with it and not fight against it and become bitter. It's all training. And part of the training is learning to wait. Wait upon the Lord. Wait. But I want it now. I want to go through Sonic. I want it now. Incidentally, go through the Sonic with me. For some reason, they are not Sonic when I'm there. I don't know what that is, but that's another story. But, we're the drive-through microwave age, and we want everything instantaneously. Okay, for some things, that's fine. But God's not operating like that. So God has plans for peace. It is shalom, which is more than just the absence of conflict. We're talking about some wellness, some well-being, some depth, and the peace he wants to give to us as we engage in his plan. As Christ said, my peace I give to you, not as the world gives peace. So we're looking for a special spiritual connection here that the world is going to look at you and think, you're nuts. I don't even get what you're thinking. And they are confused. They are perplexed by it. That's okay. Jesus gives a different peace, and that's what we're going to be into, and that's the peace we're going to connect with. And we understand he's not going to take the storms out of the way. I like the little meme that goes around sometimes that says God did not remove the Red Sea. He made a way through it. And he's not going to take the storms out of your life. He's going to make a way to endure it. And it's going to be part of the training. But you and I have to actively cultivate this peace and really get on board. So it's all a cooperative effort. This is our last slide. God does his part faithfully. I know he's got his part down. There's no problem to worry about there. He is on our side. He does want to see us succeed just as much as a good, healthy parent wants to see their child succeed. And you do. And it's your joy when they succeed. God is that healthy parent. He wants to see you succeed. And it is his joy when you succeed within the parameters of his will, his morality. And you're the same way as a parent. Your kid comes to you and says, Dad, I got a new career idea. I can make $30,000 a day. I'm going to be the best drug dealer Pine Bluff ever knew. And you just well up with joy and happiness, right? No. You don't want to see your kid succeed along that line. But your kid says, I'm going to go to college and I'm going to learn physics and I'm going to resolve some of the mysteries that are out there. It'll be over your head, but you'll go, okay, that's my kid right there. And when they graduate, you're going to walk around showing pictures of them, right? You just have to trust him. Learn to embrace the spiritual process. And if you're not getting it in James 1:5, after he tells us to enjoy our trials, he says, if you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all generously without reproach, and it will be given to you. So you pray for wisdom. Now, one comment. When you pray for wisdom, don't sit around waiting for an angel to fly over you and sprinkle fairy dust on your head. It does not work that way. We pray, give us this day our daily bread. And then you get up off your knees and you go to work and you start working whatever it is to get your daily bread. When you pray for wisdom, you pray for wisdom. Then you get up off your knees and you go cultivate wisdom. You go looking for wisdom. You go study and research and find out points of wisdom. It's not easy, but this is the straight and narrow path. And then the eternal riches are to those of us that are faithful unto death. So God's plan brings good to the faithful. That's the key, to truly be among the faithful. And if you're going to truly be among the faithful, then the first thing you have to do, as the song title says, is let him in. I'm going to make a real quick comment. Just because you got wet in the baptistry doesn't really mean you let him in. You got to really let him in. And when you let him in, and he truly becomes the Lord and master of your life, now you're on the path. So let me ask you, are you on the path? If you are, stay the course. If you're not, it's time for a change. Let us help while we stand and sing.